In today's transmission, I want to talk about developing discipline. I want to talk about breaking free from those patterns and loops and cycles of addiction and learning to love myself during the process. I want to talk about some new friends that I met on Instagram. I want to talk about what I refer to as my inner cookie monster. And I want to talk about my unhealthy obsession with Jack in the Box tacos. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Cult of Misfits. I'm Matt Owens. I've been really inspired lately by Kill Tony. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's the #1 comedy podcast in the world, so they say. Really into Kill Tony lately. It's hosted by Tony Hinchcliffe, who's a stand-up comedian. He's sort of in the Joe Rogan friend circle. And the concept of the show is it's a stand-up comedy show. You get up on stage and the comics have 1 minute to perform new material. And so I've always been a fan of stand-up comedy, so I'm really into that podcast. But I love the idea that it's an open mic. It's like an open mic night. So they pull random names out of a bucket, and sometimes you get a comedian that actually skillfully structures 1 minute of comedy, and sometimes you just get Joe Schmo from Ohio. You know, it's kind of the luck of the draw. So I love that aspect of it. I love seeing comedians sort of hone their craft, and it just sort of goes to show that, you know, it's not that easy writing 1 minute of comedy, especially with these regulars. They have these regulars on each week that craft a new 60-second bit, and it's difficult. I'm always looking to challenge myself, always looking to step outside my comfort zone, looking to face my fears. And so I actually did a 3-minute comedy set that I posted. It was at an open mic night in Seattle. And so if you're interested in checking out my very first open mic night, my first stand-up comedy routine, check it out. You can watch it all on Spotify or YouTube on the podcast. So I posted that. I posted some clips of it on my Instagram account and really boosted my ego, made me feel real good. I got a lot of kudos from people and a lot of new followers on Instagram. Anytime I get new followers on Instagram, I always kind of snoop around. I want to peek, like, what are you up to? What are you all about, friend? I'm sort of looking to cultivate a community online, and so anytime I get a new follower, I want to check them out. So I met some new friends on Instagram. Shout out to Lucinda 001964632019. She seems pretty cool. Checked out Lucinda's account, checked out her profile, and she just had one photo on her Instagram, and it was just like this super tight close-up of her ass cheeks. So that was cool. Lucinda's obviously a bit of a health nut, wanting to show off her glutes a bit. Let's see, who else did I meet? I also met hot_Chloe_6969. She was pretty cool. Went to check out her account, and she's a bit of a bikini enthusiast, apparently. She's got a bunch of, by a bunch, I just mean like four photos of what I assume are her girlfriends, maybe, just wearing bikinis. A lot of bikinis from Hot Chloe. I DM'd Hot Chloe, by the way. I DM'd Hot Chloe and I asked her, I just wanted to get her thoughts on, you know, the nature of consciousness and whether or not we're living in a simulated reality or not. So I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to hear back from Hot Chloe. Guys, a lot of bots on Instagram. It boosts my ego to see all of the likes and all of the, views on my stand-up comedy clips on Instagram. But it turns out, 75% of them are just a bunch of sex bots. It got me thinking, like, there's not a lot of male bots out there. It's kind of skewed. Maybe that's just the algorithms on my Instagram, but not a lot of not a lot of hot Garys out there. or like seductive Luke 6969. Not a lot of seductive Luke out there, slinging his banana hammock, eggplant emoji. So that's sort of interesting, but it doesn't matter, guys. I'm gaining some traction. I'm feeling really inspired to just start working in some bits. I feel like these videos that I've recorded in the past are just me sort of hitting record, and whatever flows out of my mouth, and sometimes it's poetic and beautiful, and other times it's long and windy. So I'm just sort of flexing some different muscles creatively, and I'm looking to just sort of create a little comedy, create something new, kind of flex some different muscles that I haven't flexed in a while, and it feels good. It feels good to sort of have the improvisational style where I just sort of talk about whatever's off the top of my head, whatever my heart is feeling at the time, but also to create something a little bit more structured. So look forward to that. If you're interested, check out my comedy video if you haven't checked that out. And look forward to just more funny, guys. Crossing my fingers that the funny lands. I actually did stand-up comedy once, and I was quite proud of my performance. I studied for about a month, just my routine over and over again, my 3-minute set that I posted for y'all to check out. And then I got overconfident. I got a lot of pats on the back. People were laughing in the audience, and I was like, I totally got this. Like, this is sort of my destiny. So I went back the next week and tried out brand new material, thinking like, well, I crafted 3 minutes and nailed it. So obviously I was born for this, and I created a brand new 3 minutes and went back on stage, and I got to feel what it's like to bomb. So that was fun. Just got to hear a bunch of crickets out in the audience. When you're standing up on the stage, for those of you that haven't ever been up on a stage before, the lights are blinding. So you can't actually see the audience. And the only way that you know that you're connecting with them on a human level is you can hear laughter emanating from the dark void that is sitting in front of you in the stage. So my second round was a huge flop and not funny at all. So I'm just going to continue chugging along and plodding my way through it, and just coming up with new creative things, guys. So thank you for joining me on my creative journey. Today I want to talk about addiction, and I want to talk about discipline and hatred and shame and these patterns and cycles that we get ourselves into. For those of you that have been following me on the podcast and on Instagram, A Cult of Misfits on Instagram, by the way, if you're not following me over there, I post on there regularly. If you're interested in additional content over on Instagram, I've been talking a lot about my addiction journey and how the universe has really been nudging me to go sober, which I have. And so I'm officially just over 2 months sober, which, gold star for me. I kind of had to get over the hump of going through the fire and sort of readjusting and balancing myself physically and mentally and emotionally. And so I've kind of been off the grid for a bit in terms of creating content and creating videos while my body goes through a reset period. I've always latched on to various substances, and I basically have no chill whatsoever. I try to tell myself that I have chill, but then I realize I have no chill. It's sort of my inner cookie monster is what it is. It's like that guy can't just have a couple of nibbles on a cookie, and I relate to that viscerally. Anytime I have just anything in front of me, whether it's like a plate of cookies or a fifth of bourbon or a pack of cigarettes or a joint or even a carafe of coffee, it doesn't matter. I have no chill, and my eyes just like roll back into my head, and there's just a blur of my hands just madly shoveling cookies into my mouth, metaphorically or maybe literally, guys. I can't have a couple sips of coffee in the morning just peacefully, to the bluebirds singing. I have to be like actively chugging from a carafe of coffee, with it just like cascading down my mouth, dribbling down my chin. I don't care. I just want to get that caffeine into my system as quickly as possible. And I keep chugging and keep chugging and keep chugging until, like I'm physically shaking and I have a tightness in my chest, and like my teeth are chattering wildly like a freaking meth head, like in a snowstorm, just like, chattering and grinding my teeth nonstop. And then, of course, that makes me want to just drink more coffee or eat more sugar or smoke more weed or chug more of whatever's in front of me. So the problem lies in that I don't have this issue with broccoli, right? Like I don't have this issue with a nice salad. I'm not like shoveling salad into my mouth. I do that grudgingly. I do that angrily, where I don't want to be eating a salad. I would much rather crumble, a nice macaroon on top or some sort of sugary substance on top. I'd really like to just open up a packet of sugar and just sprinkle it onto whatever I'm eating, just to sort of satiate my inner cookie monster, right? But it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And I play these games of like trying to tell myself to take a break, right? Like I'll do a sober October type of a situation, or I take a week off or a month off or whatever I've convinced myself is going to get me back on track or to rebalance myself. But the truth is it's the whole time I'm taking a break, I'm thinking about the substance nonstop, whether I'm taking a break from coffee or smoking weed or drinking alcohol or whatever. Like I'm just sort of rocking in the corner like a crazy person, just biting my nails. Like, when do I get to smoke again? When do I get to smoke again? When do I get to drink again? Counting down the days, crossing off X's on my calendar. And then 5, 4, 1. As soon as it hits midnight, I go fucking nuts again and start smoking wildly. Like, here we go. And it's just like full throttle, a no chill again. So I just sort of, at some point recently, I've gotten tired of just wrestling with this beast that resides within me. The Cookie Monster sounds all cute and cuddly for children, but it's a beast that resides within me. And anytime I get into these patterns and these cycles of just go, 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 here we go, full throttle, I just wrestle with that beast nonstop. And the week off or month off or whatever time, sober October that I take off is a good break, right? Like it's a good to have a breather, but then I know eventually I'm going right back to it. And so at some point, especially recently, I just got sick of wrestling with that beast. I just got sick of going all in with this thing and then taking a break and then going all in and taking a break and going all in and taking a break. And so I thought, like, how can we manage this thing? Because it feels like what I do is I try to get myself so sick of the substance that I never want to look at it again. I try to like gorge myself or binge on whatever it is I'm trying to stop inhaling. It's like the stories of kids that are caught smoking cigarettes and their dad, in order to teach them a lesson, has them smoke the whole pack of cigarettes in one sitting so that they'll be so, nauseated by the cigarettes and the nicotine and the the strychnine or whatever the fuck is in cigarettes, that it'll literally make you so sick that you never want to smoke another cigarette again. Which I'm glad that didn't happen to me as a kid, because like if I got caught smoking a cigarette and I had to smoke the whole pack, I would love it. I would love it. That would be a gift. If my dad did that to me, that would be a gift. And then I'd be, within a week, I'd be smoking a pack of cigarettes at 8 years old. My dad, trying to do his best by teaching me a lesson, but it would just make me want to smoke more. So, same thing with Coke. Like if I ever snorted Coke as a kid, right? It's a real problem, guys. I'm sure I heard about it on the news that, the Coke epidemic in this country with children. My dad getting me like a prostitute or something and just having me smoke, to snort several lines of Coke off of the prostitute's ass or something, just sort of disapprovingly shaking his head in the background at me. Like that wouldn't work. That just wouldn't work. I would just want more. Like, oh, that was fun. See, because the way that it works with an addict, the way that it works for me, and if you're an addict, you can relate to this, I'm sure. You can't just have one, right? The problem is whether it's weed or a cookie or whatever, like just to take a light example, I'll have a donut in the morning with my coffee. And I'll be like, well, that donut really got me all jazzed up, got me on a sugar high, and I love how that felt. So if one donut was good, surely 2 donuts will be twice as good, right? So then the next morning I'm having 2 donuts. And then for a few days, I have 2 donuts every fucking morning because now I'm caught in this loop and I'm caught in this donut pattern. And so then I think, well, 2 donuts is pretty great. So let's take it up a notch. And now I'm having 3 donuts, 4 donuts, 5 donuts. And pretty soon I'm eating like a dozen donuts every single morning and I can't stop. I wake up and I'm just like, shaking until I get my donut fix. And the same thing goes with alcohol or weed or whatever. I can't just have 1 cup of coffee. I can't just have a couple puffs of weed. I have to I have to get blackout drunk. I can't just have a couple sips. I have to be like, well, That was fun. So if I got a little buzzed tonight, well, tomorrow night I'm gonna get trashed, and then trash the next night, and then I'm drinking. Before you know it, I'm drinking half a gallon of the cheapest vodka off the shelf because like I've got a problem, guys. So I just am trying to break this pattern, and I'm trying to break this loop and this cycle that I get myself into, and that's what this is all about lately, is trying to break myself free from that. Because I always talk about freedom. I just want to be free from just everything, and part of the issue is the mental game as well, and learning to through the process, because there's a large component of this that is not loving myself, and I'm realizing that as I'm going through this breaking free from my addictive cycles is I get into these addictive cycles of guilt and shame and beating myself up and self-degradation and telling myself I'm not good enough and telling myself I'm a piece of shit and that I'm worthless and that I deserve all of this, like listening to that voice in my head that I call the adversary, that's just always trying to, first of all, keep me in these comfort zones of mine, right? And these comfort zones of mine are these addictive cycles and patterns, because I use these addictive cycles and patterns to sort of try to comfort myself, to try to use them as some sort of a crutch or a band-aid to cover up deeper issues that I never had addressed before, right? But I'm learning as I go inward that much of my adult life I never loved myself. I never loved myself. There was many aspects of my personality and my actions and my behaviors that I just hated about myself, and I kept them hidden and didn't want to talk about them because I got real triggered about them, because I hated those aspects of myself, right? And I never really learned to, sort of embrace my imperfections, to give myself fucking grace. Never did that before. That's something that's new and I'm working on, and it feels great when I do it. So that's healthy, I suppose. But a part of that is just to have, love and compassion for myself, realizing that this doesn't happen overnight, right? Because the adversary in my mind, that voice in my mind that's telling me that, like, if I don't quit within a week, I'm a piece of shit. If I have no self-control, I'll never be able to do this, right? But like, for example, right now I'm sort of trying to get myself into a pattern of fasting. I've played around with intermittent fasting on occasion over the years, to great results, by the way. When I am actually intermittent fasting, I feel fucking fantastic. I feel amazing. I feel energetic. I feel like it gives my body a chance to regenerate and to breathe and to relax and not be always shoving substances and food and coffee and weed and alcohol, just to give my body a chance to breathe, right? It's just sort of this metaphorical breathing in and breathing out and breathing in and breathing out, and the inhale and the exhale. And the exhale is just giving my body a chance to recuperate. And so I'm doing right now, is what I'm working on, is intermittent fasting again. And some days I'm successful, other days I'm not. And because I'm not new at this whole, trying to break these patterns, I like the little glitch here behind me. It's like glitches in the Matrix, guys. It's metaphorical. Just giving myself some fucking grace, right? Letting myself know that, like, if I fail today, I'm not a failure. I'm not a failure at life if I relapse today. I'm not a failure at life if I go off my diet or don't intermittent fast today. If I have a moment of weakness and I want a cookie or want to smoke some weed, which, by the way, I haven't had any drugs or alcohol in over 2 months, and I haven't had any relapses, and I feel good about that. I feel proud of myself. So then when I am trying to reduce the amount of sugar that I'm eating and coffee that I'm eating, for example, which is what I'm currently doing, what I want to do is, the adversary, that voice in my head, tells me to quit everything all at once. Like, okay, next week, we're going all in. We're going to quit drinking. We're going to quit smoking weed. We're going to stop with sugar. We're going to eat healthy, and we're going to start intermittent fasting, right? And so I build it up into my head and listen to that voice in my head. And then it starts to become so big and too much to handle. And then I'm destined to fail, right? I'm destined to not be able to handle all of those things. So what I've learned over the years is to take baby steps, right? So my baby steps on this go around are to quit smoking weed and drinking alcohol. Okay. That's phase one. And I've been doing great. Honestly, I don't even feel I'm not even tempted. So that's a blessing in itself. And the truth is that I've tried to quit drugs and alcohol so many times in the past that it's finally stuck, right? This isn't my first go around on this thing. That's part of the thing I have to remind myself too, is that like, I'm not going to do this on the first try. And if you think that you are, you're not. Okay. So like, if you do, good for you. Yay. I don't know who you are. You're superhuman. You're not from this planet. You're going to have to do it many, many times. And you're going to fail many, many times, as I did. And part of that grace and part of that forgiveness for yourself is being able to understand that like, it's a process. It's a process. You're going to fail. I had to try quitting smoking cigarettes 5,000 times before it finally stuck. And I knew that if I just kept plugging away at it, trying and trying and trying and trying and failing and failing and trying and failing and failing times 1,000, that eventually I was going to get myself to a place where it was going to stick. And it did. I haven't smoked cigarettes in I don't know how long. Decades. And so I know that I can do it, right? There's been a proof of concept. I know that I'm capable of doing anything. And anytime I try to attempt these things in my life, it's just me trying to, that I'm capable of doing anything, right? And then when I do the thing, I'm like, see, I did it. I know that I can do anything. This is part of my path of becoming unstoppable, right? Of becoming more powerful, of growing, of expanding myself, my consciousness, my mind, my strength, right? And so it's just about not listening to that voice in my head telling me that I'm going to fail. And so right now I'm currently working on reducing / eliminating caffeine and sugar in my life, right? That's a tall order because me likey the sugar, me likey the caffeine, but I know that it's not ideal for my body. What I want to do is break free from this shit. I don't want to become reliant upon these things. I don't want to wake up each morning like an addict and say, I need my coffee. I need my coffee, because these are some of the limiting beliefs that I tell myself, that I need coffee to function in the morning, that I need weed to be creative, that I need alcohol to be social, that I need to be blackout drunk or stoned out of my mind to sleep at night. All of these things are false. Now, if you had asked me that a few years ago, I'd be like, no, I definitely need these things. But as I've been addressing these limiting beliefs that I've created within my own mind, I started to realize that they're all lies, that the adversary, that voice in my head, is just whipping up a bunch of lies for me, right? That I need these things to be social or fun or to sleep or to wake up or to deal with my anxiety or stress. I can't tell you how often I leaned on alcohol and marijuana in order to reduce my stress and anxiety. And I have to tell you that for a long time, it really served its purpose, did a good job of reducing my stress and anxiety. Especially, I had a lot of social anxiety that I've worked through and successfully over the last few years. But weed got me through a lot of parties, a lot of family functions, a lot of holiday gatherings. I tip my hat to marijuana because it really helped me to get through those situations. I started questioning, like, do I really need these substances in order to function successfully in life? And of course, the answer is no, right? Of course, the answer is no. And so I found that anytime the universe, God, my intuition, whatever you want to call it, is sort of pushing me lovingly towards letting these substances go, letting these crutches go out of my life, what I find that happens is inevitably there's a souring of the milk, is what I call it. It sort of reminds me, there's this Star Trek The Next Generation episode where, stick with me, guys. I love Star Trek. You don't have to understand the show to understand this analogy I'm going to give you here. But there's an episode of Star Trek where they encounter this space creature, this space animal, and it shoots some electricity at the Enterprise, and Captain Picard panics and they think that they're under attack. And so they kill this space creature, right? Then they feel bad about it. Picard turns Buddhist all of a sudden. Then they feel like, hey, I just harmed a creature. I feel bad about that. And they realize that they misunderstood the creature's intentions. It wasn't trying to attack them. It was trying to, just say hello with a bolt of electricity. Then they realize that this creature was pregnant and that there's a baby creature inside of the belly of the beast. And so the Enterprise uses its phasers to slice open the dead mother and extract the baby through cesarean section. It's a weird episode, guys. But what I'm getting at is the baby latches itself onto the enterprise and starts suckling energy, electricity from the Starship Enterprise. And this poses a real problem because it's sucking the energy from the ship, and it's starting to affect critical systems like life support and the lights and whatever is on the Enterprise, guys. And so they can't figure out how to detach this baby who's suckling energy, which is what it feeds upon, is energy from the Enterprise. And so what they eventually decide to do, because they're having regrets about killing its mother, so they don't want to just shoot phasers at it and kill it again because they don't want to be monsters. So what they decide to do, thanks to Geordie LaForge, is to sour the milk, metaphorically speaking. They want to change the frequency of the energy output from the Enterprise so that it will not be delicious anymore to this sweet baby space creature. So they change the frequency of the energy output. It sours the milk, metaphorically, and the space baby goes off to live its best life, right? And so this really resonated with me because anytime things in my life are no longer serving me, such as, chugging gallons of vodka or coffee or chain smoking or any of these things that don't serve me anymore, the universe has a funny way of souring the milk, right? Weed really served me well for so long, socially speaking and creatively speaking, and connecting with the all that is and divinity. It opened my third eye. It served me quite well. But at some point, the universe started to sour the milk, and I started smoking weed, and it just wasn't doing what it used to do anymore, right? Where it just wasn't good anymore. It was starting to make me real paranoid. It was starting to make me, I would start eating a bunch of junk food, of course, right? Like I smoke a bunch of weed, and then naturally I want to go to, eat fast food or binge eat, a whole chocolate cake to myself or whatever, right? Or a whole pepperoni pizza or whatever. So, God, that sounds really good right now, by the way. Shake it off, Matt. Shake it off. So it has a way of souring the milk. Same thing with alcohol. Same thing with sugar. Nowadays, lately, when I've been binge eating sugar, it puts me in a fucking bad mood. Or if I drink a bunch of alcohol, it would put me in this terrible, terrible mood that I just couldn't shake all day. Oftentimes, it would sort of just wreck me for the whole day, and I would just be grumpy and irritable. Whereas before, I would smoke a big fat joint and then go on a walk in the woods, and it was just like me living my best life. I was connecting with God and the cosmos and my higher self, and just like loving life. And it turned into not fun, right? Mostly it was my moods that were really affecting me, and I was realizing that the universe was souring the milk, and I'm starting to recognize the patterns of when the universe is talking to me, telling me that it's not serving me anymore. And I always sort of roll my eyes like, I'm not ready to give this up yet. Like a big middle finger to the universe, like, fuck you. I don't want to give this up right now. And the universe is like, that's fine. We're just going to keep turning up the heat, and it's going to get worse and worse, and you're going to like it less and less. So you do you, buddy. And so the milk has been real sour lately. And so I feel real good going sober. And so I'm just, phase two, now that I've sort of got drugs and alcohol under my belt and I feel stable. Phase two is sugar and coffee. So that's what I'm working on. But I've never really considered myself a disciplined person. A large part of that is because I just don't want anyone telling me what to fucking do. Right. And that includes, my own intuition, my own intuition, which I believe is sort of the red phone from the divine, right? Just sort of a direct connection to God saying, hey, here's maybe the direction we should be heading to, best, for growth and expansion of our soul. I oftentimes don't want to listen to that voice, but I've found that when I do listen to that voice, that intuitive hit, my gut, things tend to get better. So I grudgingly nowadays, rolling my eyes heavily, follow that voice. But there's always an initial period where I'm like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do. Fuck you, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to be disciplined. I'm not one of these David Goggins types or, Joe Rogan or, these militaristic guys. I listen to a lot of entrepreneurs podcasts, and a lot of them are real hardcore, real disciplined. They always brag about how they wake up at 4 a.m. and, do 55 push-ups and then a cold plunge. And then, they make their bed and then they make their smoothie, and they're very regimented about their routines, and they're eating their cold oats. And I'm not into it. Not into it. I don't want, because that's just another pattern for me. And I don't want to get stuck in another pattern of how to do a morning routine. I just sort of want to fly by the seat of my pants and do whatever feels good. And what I'm learning is that a little dash of discipline can maybe be good for me at times, right? Like I don't have to be militaristic and hardcore about it, but I also maybe need some guardrails in my life. And so that's sort of what I'm playing with lately is putting some guardrails in place. I don't like to use the word rules, because anytime I hear the word rules, the hairs in the back of my neck start standing up and I start, going into berserker mode. Like, don't fucking tell me what to do. And it's like, okay, buddy, calm down. Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a breath. Nobody's telling me what to do. We're just setting up some guardrails here, because when I don't have guardrails, I tend to go off the fucking cliff, right? I tend to, drink myself into an oblivion or eat the whole tray of cookies, and Cookie Monster starts waking up again and I go into crazy mode. So I'm learning that a few guardrails are maybe a good thing for me, right? Just to sort of keep me on the path. And it's on the path that I want to be on. It's not the path that I think society is telling me to do, because it's like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do. Or the path that my parents are telling me I should or shouldn't be on. Fuck you, don't tell me what to do. So it's just my own path, my own guardrails, right? And it's not to say that I don't bump up against those guardrails, sometimes pretty violently, right? Because I try to push my way where I want to go. I want to go over here. And those guardrails, I'm learning, are a blessing. They're there for a good reason. And they have been really helping me out so that I don't go back to the old way, these old patterns, these old coping mechanisms, right? That what I'm trying to do, this path of freedom that I'm forging for myself, I often am heading into unknown territory. I'm often heading into darkness. I'm heading into uncharted waters. And in order to do that, I found that setting up these guardrails for myself and setting up these new patterns of healthy behavior, right? Like, I just wish I could endlessly eat broccoli, but I'm not there yet, guys. Not there yet, but these guardrails have proven to be quite effective. And I'm learning that they're a new tool in my tool belt. And I don't have to go off the deep end with the rules and the regulations in my life, but they're just there to sort of bump me back onto the path that I want to be on for myself, right? And a lot of times when I bump into the guardrails, this is metaphorically me experiencing suffering, right? And so often in our lives as humans, we don't want to experience suffering, but I'm sorry to tell you, it's a part of life. It's a part of reality. It's a part of the material 3D realm that we've found ourselves in. Like, yay! And so often I want to get myself away from suffering. And so the ways that I had done that in the past were drinking and smoking and relying on these crutches, right, to get through so I don't experience suffering. If I am experiencing anxiety or stress, I don't want to experience that suffering. That's yucky. I don't like that. So I just smoked myself into an oblivion. But I was just listening to another podcast and somebody was talking about, it could have been Jordan Peterson. Big fan of Jordan Peterson, by the way. If you haven't checked him out, I highly suggest Jordan Peterson. I don't know who to attribute it to, but they were talking about suffering, and they were talking about suffering now versus suffering later, right? That there's going to be suffering no matter what you do. Suffering now versus suffering later. It's this idea that you're going to suffer either way. So you can either do the short term or the long term. And the example for me that resonated was like, these substances that I want to consume. I can do a short term fix and smoke the joint or eat the sugar and the coffee in the morning in order to feel better and to wake myself up. Or I can have this delayed gratification situation and realize that if I fast today or exercise today, that's going to suck in the short term. Like, fasting isn't fun with the grumbly tummy, or exercising, getting out there and doing the grind in the gym. It's not fun, but I know that in the long term, that suffering at the gym, or the suffering that my body's going through while I'm fasting, is going to have long-term effects that are net positive, right? But knowing that if I submit to the cookies or submit to the coffee or submit to the alcohol, that it's going to have that short-term gratification. I'm going to love it, but there's going to be extended suffering at the end of that, right? At the end of that tunnel is going to be a hangover, whether it's a sucrose hangover or an alcohol hangover or a bad mood the next day. It's going to affect me one way or the other. And so it's about choosing weapon, choosing my suffering, right? Do I want the short-term suffering or the long-term suffering? And so I'm learning to just sort of mitigate that in my own life and choose and make better decisions for myself, right? Recognizing, because what I've realized is that it always sounds better on paper. It always sounds better in the now. Like, wow, it really, a stiff martini sounds real good right now. I've had a rough day. I've had a long day. I'm stressed out. Like, I could really use a martini right now. But it's about recognizing that, yes, it sounds good right now, but one martini is going to turn into 3, more likely 6 if I'm being honest with myself. And then I'm just going to be wrecked and I'm going to spend all day tomorrow regretting those martinis. And so it never sounds as good as it is, right? Like this morning, I really wanted a donut because I'm sort of breaking free from that. And I know that there are worse addictions than a donut, right? There's people out there with addictions to meth and heroin and all this shit. Like a donut's pretty mild comparatively, right? It's just an example that I wanted that donut, but I had to tell myself that even though the donut sounds real good right now, it's going to turn into 4 donuts real quick and it's going to wreck my mood. It's going to wreck my day. My mood is going to go downhill. My creativity goes downhill. I eventually have a crash in the afternoon where I just can't function and I got to just nap because my body is having that sugar overload. And of course, when I have the donuts, then I have the coffee and my body just crashes. My body crashes. And so I have all of these things that I want to do. I want to start recording more of these videos. I want to start being more creative. And I can't do that if I'm taking a nap at 3 in the afternoon because I OD'd on sugar, right? So there's this concept of our body being a temple, right? I always sort of hated those types of people that would talk about, oh, my body is a temple. These people, these sanctimonious fucking, vegans or whatever, and their yoga pants and their fitness YouTube channels and talking about their fucking green smoothies every day. Like I was always like, just fuck those people. Fuck those people talking about how their body is a temple because often I would say fuck those people as I was in the drive-through lane at Jack in the Box, right? Or whatever, like, ordering eight of the tacos at Jack in the Box and calling that dinner, right? Like trying to convince myself that because these Jack in the Box tacos are tacos, right? How American was that? Eating these tacos, they've got, a corn-like substance to them and contain like hot lettuce and some sort of a wet dog food protein inside that somehow this is a part of the food pyramid and I'm trying to convince myself this is a healthy dinner. It's not, right? It's barely fit for human consumption if we're being honest with ourselves. I definitely have gone into the taco dark place. And as I'm eating taco after taco, I am trying to tell myself, like, why can't I just be a green smoothie yoga pants person? Why can't my body be a temple? But the tacos are quite delicious. So I've come around on this, guys, as I've tried to distance myself from the quote unquote tacos. It's not actual real food, right? And I've started to come around to this idea that our bodies are a temple. And what that means for me is just respecting my dang avatar, respecting my body. I often like to dive into what the sacred texts have to say on the matter, whether it's Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism or the Eastern philosophies or whatever, and what they have to say about our body being a temple. The Bible talks about how, the Holy Spirit resides within us, right? That our body is a literal temple, just in the same way that a cathedral is a receptacle for the Holy Spirit, right? That our bodies are this receptacle for the divine spark, the divine spirit, that divinity is literally living within us. If you talk about Hinduism, they talk about how our body is a physical manifestation of this divine energy, that our bodies are avatars and sacred vessels for a divine spirit. So once I start putting it into this context, it's like, okay, I get it, because I do believe that we are housing something divine, that there is a divinity that is within us, and perhaps shoveling American cheese filled corn pockets into our mouth is perhaps not the best way to respect and honor this divine vessel that we are. And so I've really been focusing on not polluting this divine sacred temple with toxins, right? By honoring my body, by not filling it with alcohol each night, and by honoring my lungs by not filling them with sweet marijuana smoke or nicotine, by honoring, and honoring my mind too. It's not just about honoring my body, but honoring my mind, and by not hating myself, by not filling myself with self-loathing, by not polluting my mind with social media and things of this nature. And so I'm just trying to honor and respect my vessel, right? And so now, instead of being judgmental and hating on the yoga pants crowd, I'm starting to respect my body and respect my mind and treat it as a temple and not treat it as a receptacle for Dunkin' Donuts. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So I'm trying to be more accountable to myself and to be a man of my word. I teach my kids to be a man of your word. When you say you're going to do something, to do it. And so now when I say I'm going to eat healthier and say I'm going to try to respect myself more, I try to actually do it. And I'm trying to be accountable to myself and to God and to nobody else, because oftentimes people in our families will judge us, and our old drinking buddies will judge us when we're no longer drinking, or I'm just doing it for me. I'm doing it for me, doing it for God, doing it for the divinity that resides within me, not listening to what other people think my path should or shouldn't be. And I'm just trying to become, the best possible version of myself that I can, and trying to bring myself as much freedom as I can. And for me, this is what the path is. This isn't about wagging my finger at anybody and saying that you should or shouldn't follow what I'm doing or talking about. This is just a part of my journey. It's about the expansion of my consciousness, the growth of my soul, the expansion of my mind and my heart. And I feel like that's what this journey is all about. So for now, that's all I got. Love you. End transmission.